that too, right?
Can you put a price tag on that, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, you can. We're still not there.
But I'll leave that open-ended, y'all, and then y'all can kind of...
Perfect.
The idea is from that point we'll kind of dive back, and then we'll let y'all both kind of... Well, he'll really lead it from there.
I can tap dance my way through anything.
Yeah.
Hell no.
We all can.
We just do it live, baby.
Fuck it, let's do it live.
This is probably not a good thing for him because we were all seeing it at some point. And then we've got this guy who's like, he'll be...
He's going to run through a wall.
I'm the infantry. I'm used to being out there.
All right, cool. I'm going to start this just so I know how long it's been.
Yeah, good call.
Are we good?
All right.
Are we good?
Mm-hmm.
Hey everybody, welcome back to our next episode here. We have two phenomenal guests here from Tracer Burnout, the co-founders, here with Dan and Roger Vogel. And super excited to talk to you guys about Tracer Burnout, their life stories, their comeback story, and really where they're at now, where they plan on taking this organization. So thanks, gentlemen.
Perfect.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
That is the first time Roger has ever been called phenomenal at anything.
You know what? I accept. Thank you.
That's fair. So I guess to start off with, what is Tracer Burnout? Why do y'all define it as a success story for y'all? Where do you see the future of Tracer Burnout, and what are y'all hoping to gain from it?
Tracer Burnout is our podcast, both video and audio, that we started to record stories of service for, regardless of your branch of service, your era of service, your length of service, your rank, all that stuff aside. It doesn't matter. You put on the uniform so that somebody else didn't have to, and so that deserves to be recognized. But more than that, it is now a living memory for future generations to be able to look back and see and hear the people talking about their time in service instead of just looking at a picture of great-grandpa on the wall. Now you can actually look back and see him talking about his time in service or listen to him. And that is important. We didn't start with that intent. It was the intent was really to help veterans feel heard, let them know that their service is important and deserves to be remembered and recognized, to help the civilian population better understand what service is. Right? So instead of, just on Veterans Day, the whole thank you for your service, sure, and not having any idea what that service actually is, now people that listen to the show can better understand what our service members go through and what their experiences were. So you'll actually know what you're thanking them for.
Well, thanks for coming. And,
No, that's super interesting because I think we've gotten to a point now where we live in a society, especially with social media and everything being so big, right? People, it's almost like the imposter syndrome, right? Mm-hmm. We've talked about it, but you get people like, man, I don't know if I should talk about it. I didn't do X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
But you make a really good point. Like everybody hangs it up at some point, and you still served in whatever capacity it is. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be the person that went and did everything that's out there. Like your service does matter.
Yeah, and I mean, we've talked about this before, but the civilian population has a very skewed view of what service is, right? And that's because on the news, who do you see? You see General so-and-so, Admiral so-and-so doing their 5-minute paid hit, right? Or you see the super awesome guys, the Navy SEALs, the special forces, sure, all these guys that are amazing at everything and aren't ashamed to tell you that they're amazing at everything, right? Or you get the guy that's got PTSD so bad from the most horrific experiences that you've ever heard of that now he's, robbing a bank because the VA screwed him over and, whatever. All those people exist, obviously. But that's, the 0.001% of the veteran population. And that leaves out everybody else, right? People see a uniform and no face to it, right? So they just know that you served, and they assume that because you were in the Army, you were climbing mountains, or you were in the Air Force, so you were flying planes. You were in the Space Force, so you're not real. I'm going to find a Space Force veteran to talk to so they can prove their existence to me.
The Space Force is real.
It's not. Yet. I have no proof of this. But it's a humanizing effort to show that, everybody's service does matter. And it irritates me to no end. It's completely understandable, but it irritates me to no end when people say, I don't have a story to tell. He's like, yeah, you do.
Yeah,
you do.
Right.
You served. those 3 years, those 10 years, those years impacted you in some way, shape, or form. Good, bad. You made friends. You met people that you couldn't stand more in the world, and you wouldn't piss on them if they were on fire, right? Those years had an impact on you, and that deserves to be heard, talked about, recognized.
Yeah, I think it's great. Obviously, I think the fact that you're essentially memorializing somebody else's time spent in service is important, right? Because it is a documentation of our history and what we've gone through. Because you kind of talked about it earlier when we were just kind of chatting. You kind of pull at a thread and you kind of see something that comes out of somebody, and then there's more, and then it kind of sparks a memory or something like that. And you're like, oh, maybe that's where I started to have issues. I know he's done it to me a bunch. Chad and I share a pretty long history, known each other for about 10 years.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you for your service.
But he can kind of understand when I'm going through something, and I think that's something that y'all are able to do when you bring people in. It's like, let's kind of unpack that. I know y'all have had some guests on in the past that you've probably gotten a little bit more out of them, and they even know their story a little bit more after telling it.
It's part of the concept here is veterans talking to other veterans, very similar to how we're doing now, and it's very, very, very disarming for people. You will get far more out of them as far as being able to open up than if you were a non-veteran. It's just something about the personalities, and that most importantly, it's that shared experience.
Yeah.
You have that baseline. It doesn't even matter if you were in the same service. If you sit a Navy gal down next to a Marine guy, they will still be able to at least have some baseline or a jumping off point that they've shared. So
yeah, it's I don't like the term, but it's trauma bonding, right?
Right.
So
an extent,
and it doesn't matter whether you were in Vietnam or in the War on Terror or in Korea or World War II, whatever, or maybe you served in the inter years, right, where there wasn't really a whole lot going on a massive scale. But as soon as you find out that somebody else served, you have that shared experience to draw on, because like, oh, you know what it's like. Yeah, sure, you were in the Navy, but you know what it's like.
Right.
Yeah. Well, starting with that is you guys have talked about how you guys were like lifelong friends. Mm-hmm. So Dan, let's start with you. Kind of your synopsis of your life story and how you met Roger. And
I am an Army brat, same as Raj. My dad, I was born in what was West Germany, and then I grew up all over the place. While my dad was in the Middle East, I grew up there, back and forth to the States, almost always coming back to the Fayetteville area. So this is where I call home. But I've even spent some time in exotic Canada. Yeah,
Canadian.
But yeah, my dad was at the War College up there for a year or so, and so I spent time growing up there too. But growing up in the military, I didn't really have any other thought of doing anything else. I knew when I graduated high school that I knew before I graduated high school that I wasn't going to be going off to college. That was more curriculum-based education was not for me. So like at 17, I went up to the recruiter. He didn't have to chase me down or anything. He didn't have to call me and harass me. I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to join the Army and I want to be in the infantry. And he was like, all right, well, we can make that happen. So I did that, and that was in 97, left for basic training in 98, and I was getting ready to get out. I was less than a year away from because I signed up for 4 years originally, and I was less than a year out, and then September 11th happened, and then I re-enlisted like that, and never looked back. So
where were you when September 11th happened?
I was at Fort Drum, up in New York.
He loves Fort Drum. It's so near and dear to his heart, especially in February.
I tell you what, I grew up, like I said, all over the place. And this is before the internet. So, as a kid from North Carolina, I figured all of New York must be like New York City. That is not true.
It is not true.
That is not true. I stepped off a bus into like 4 feet of snow, and I'm wearing like a t-shirt and flip-flops and shorts, and I'm holding my Class A's above my head like, where the hell am I?
Right
when
into a
you had-
snowdrift.
This is when you had to like wait till 9 to call mom. And she was like, I think I'm lost somewhere.
Oh, dude.
So where you were at Drum when 9/11 happened? Like,
Mhm.
how did I'm interested to know, like, how did that day start, and then especially being in New York, like, how was that whole dynamic, and then what happened at work and everything else?
We were in the field for live fire lanes, and I had actually started my team. This is my first time ever being a team leader, and I was actually walking my team down the blank fire lane, because you had to do dry fire, blank fire, and then you did live fire.
Crawl, walk, run.
And I was going through the blank fire, and we were, I don't know, maybe 100 yards into this lane, and we got the, ceasefire, pause X, go back to the rally point, and I was like, oh man, I screwed this up.
It's over. It's
I
over.
totally screwed this up.
Catastrophizing.
It's all over. They're gonna send me to the 3 shop or something, whatever. And no, that wasn't the case. The company commander rallied us all into this little pavilion area and told us what happened, and did anybody have family in New York City? And there were several guys that did. They got pulled off to the side, and like the XO took them off to try and make phone calls and stuff like that, and find out if their family was okay and everything. And we kind of sat around waiting, and then they called the trucks. Trucks came and picked us up, took us back to the unit. Everybody's still like, what the hell is going
Nobody
on?
knows.
Nobody knows anything.
Yeah.
And then the very next day, we mounted back up and went right back out to the field, just to turn around and come right back again.
What, the 10th Mountain Division is going on around here?
Yeah, something like that. So then the weeks following started a series of EDREs, the Emergency Deployment Readiness Exercises, which I haven't seen done in the throughout the rest of my career. I think I did one, but we did one like every other day for the first few weeks, and then a sergeant major came out and was like, "Hey, you guys did great." This would have been towards the end of September, so that sergeant major came out and was like, "You guys did great, it's awesome. We're gonna put you guys on a 4-day weekend. Just throw your go bags, back in your rooms, whatever. Go on a 4-day weekend, and we'll see you guys Tuesday." Went up to my fiance's place, about an hour and a half away, and got in the shower, getting cleaned up, and then there's a banging on the door, and it's my buddy Chad saying, "We got the call, we got to go back." Like, oh, dude. He and I go back down to Drum. They load us up on a plane, and this time we do not land in Bangor, Maine. We keep going. And we touch down in Ireland for a couple of hours. And then we touch down in Germany for a couple of hours. And we touch down in Italy for a couple of hours. And then we touch down in Turkey for a couple of hours. And then we wind up stopping in Uzbekistan at K2.
Manus wasn't running yet. No.
So it was Cosmobad, something like that. K2.
K2. Yeah.
In Uzbekistan, and we were not there. So like all the patches and everything came off of the uniforms. We're in BDUs, in black boots.
What's going through your head
Cutting
as you're
stuff
like
off.
landing and you're like, what? Like, because I'm sure at this point, I've had my fair share of no notice deployments, and I can only imagine what's going through it, because I know what was going through my head. I'm like, this isn't real. Like, what are we doing? We're just hopping all these places. Like, we have no orders, we have nothing. But I mean, I'm interested to hear what your take on it was.
None of us really knew what was going on. I mean, yeah, it was no notice. I was barely 21. My son is like less than a month or less than 2 months away from being born. I'm like, I have no idea. I wrote a letter to my parents and to my fiance at the time at every stop along the way. Just like, I don't know what's going on, but this is where we are now. And then, threw it in the USO box or whatever it was. And then when we got to Uzbekistan, it was like, it's totally flat. There's nothing there. It's just totally flat out in the middle of nowhere. We're like, where the hell are we, and what are we doing here?
Looks like purgatory out there.
Yeah, I mean, it was there was nothing. It was just nothingness, just sand. And then we found out later, but off in the distance, you could see some like little maybe knolls or small hills or something like that. Those were old Russian airplane hangars. Yeah. But we were there for I don't know, a few weeks. That was actually the first time I'd ever seen a Harry Potter book. And I had,
You're dating yourself now.
I made fun of my platoon sergeant because he brought several of them. And I mean, I had packed a couple of bags. Like, I have a copy of The Killer Angels that I have taken on every deployment because it's a fantastic book. And I had brought a couple of other books. He opens up his A bag and he's like pulling out these Harry Potter books, and of course they look like kids' books. I'm like,
They are kids' books.
like, you're a grown ass man. What are you doing reading these?
Into a war zone, no less.
Yeah.
So anyway, I messed with him about that for a while, but then of course, a few years later, billion-dollar franchises that are making all the movies and everything. So who's the jackass now? But yeah, we were there for a few weeks. It got built up, and then we got on a bird and ended up landing in Afghanistan at Bagram, which people think of Bagram and they think of it as this ginormous complex and everything. There was nothing.
It was Bagram Airfield.
The plane could not land because the runway was in pieces.
Yep.
The air traffic control tower did not have windows or a roof. There was like the framing of where some of the windows used to be, but there was no glass in it. There was an SF team already on the ground.
5th group.
And
Yeah.
we did like a rolling stop, and we were just supposed to be securing the area for them. We did like a rolling stop and just kind of like tumbled out the back. And on the way in, they're telling us, all right, we're going in hot. So everybody's locking and loading and everything. And a few minutes later, nope. Area secure. Clear the weapons. Clear the weapons. A few minutes later, nope, we're going in hot. We're going in hot.
Kidding.
So I mean, it was that just seemed to go on forever, and then we get off, and we got our nods on, and the nods are not helping at all.
Sure.
It is just dark.
It's pitch dark.
It is black out there. I mean, it's just dark, and all you see is just like this little chem light, because whoever the ground guide was there was legitimately using one of those little like light bright lights to like guide us into these old Russian barracks that had no windows, no doors, in some places not even a roof, no cots, no nothing. And that's where we bedded down for the next several months. All by ourselves. And we weren't there.
Right.
I have we did eventually get like DCUs and stuff that came in trash bags, and half of them didn't fit right.
Elvis collars.
Some of them had the Elvis collars.
Yeah.
Some of them were the chocolate chips.
Chocolate chips.
And I actually have a picture I'll show you guys later. It's me and a couple of guys were actually getting on the bird ready to come back to the States in like April of 2002. And if you look closely enough at the uniform, you'll see that all of our name tapes and rank and stuff like that that we had to sew or super glue back onto our uniforms is the BDU stuff.
Yeah.
Because that's what we had.
Yeah.
So we got our desert uniforms with our BDU stuff on there. So.
Roger, had you already joined at this time?
So, quick version for me. At this time I was in ROTC at the East Carolina University, also known as the Harvard of Eastern North Carolina.
It's true.
So I was watching all this go down from a safe distance in Greenville, North Carolina. But
Did you know each other then?
Oh yeah.
yeah, so backing up, Dan and I were in elementary school age together here in Fayetteville, just next street over. So we had turf battles over the creek behind my literal turf battles in the creek, which was on the easement behind my house where the city owns this little freshwater creek that would come through. So naturally, my sister and I would
I gotta ask,
Robinson
who's
Crusoe.
got the best Nerf gun sniper shot on each other, since you know your childhood friends here? Is it?
I never.
It's the infantry guy, so I'm thinking. It's
I never owned a Nerf gun
Okay,
as a
so
child.
then the win goes to Roger then.
I mean, by default.
I know what?
suppose,
I
yeah.
accept.
Yeah.
I accept. So elementary school age, we were playing and we became friends. We split away because Dad's PCS, and then we came back and ended up doing most of high school together.
Yeah.
Pretty much all of high school, actually. So here in Fayetteville. So when he peeled away to go enlist, I was 2 years behind him in school, but little more than a year younger than him. I was this close to doing the exact same thing as him and just enlisting. because like him, I had no intention on doing more structured school. Like I was one of those kids. Like I was reasonably intelligent. I was very lazy academically. I was intelligent, but I didn't do the work. So like I signed up for the AP classes and the honor classes because I was told I was supposed to, but I didn't even take the AP exams. So like why would you take an AP class and not? I wanted to go spread my wings and be free. I had great home life. It's not like I was trying to escape a bad situation. Not true at all. But my parents raised me to be, independent and go be a man, and that's what I wanted to go do. So I was going to enlist, and Mom twisted my arm into going to college, and I was like, all right, I will listen to Mom. Mom's always right about these things. So I signed up for ROTC. They offer me a scholarship. I'm like, okay, if you're going to throw it at me, sure. 9/11 happens about 6 months after I signed my ROTC scholarship. And then about a year after that happens, Iraq pops off. So from the time I showed up in the fall of 2000 to the time I commissioned in the summer of 2004, we'd started 2 wars. So I was like, oh, interesting. So that's kind of the fast version of my timeline. And I remember being an OBC student in Field Artillery Basic at Fort Sill and calling Dan, who'd already been deployed twice at that point, right? 04?
In 04 3 times.
Okay, yeah. Well, we skipped over the Balkans. He went to the Balkans too. Yeah. So, I remember being a second lieutenant calling up Sergeant Baker and being like, "What do FSOs do?" yeah. So, we remained friends all these years, but it was with deployments and obviously as cell phones improved and smartphones improved, it became easier to stay in contact. But we were both on wild and crazy deployment schedules and all that, so it got kind of hard. But
we would most of the time we would end up running back into each other. Like he would come home to after his deployment, he'd be back here at Bragg, and then I'd come to town to visit my folks or whatever for Christmas, or I was on leave or whatever the case was, and I'd hit him up and be like, "Hey, you went down?"
Yeah, man.
So across the course of our careers, we only crossed paths a couple of times. When he was at the career course down at Benning, and I was a drill at the time. Mm-hmm. So we had a few months that we would be able to get together when he wasn't in class and I wasn't
screaming
instructing
the next generation.
The next generation of infantry soldiers. Yes, put it that way. So there was that, and then when I was at Polk as an OC, he came down for a couple of different
you just had
rotations.
The
the Army has been amazing at sending me to all the finest locations there are to offer. I mean, I've done Polk, Drum, Irwin, and I mean,
don't forget Afghanistan.
Oh yeah, I mean Afghanistan. The coolest assignment that I ever had was after I was done being in a drill. I came out on orders for Germany. And I wound up going to Baumholder, which is where my dad was stationed when I was born. Okay. So that was kind of like a full circle kind of moment. Europe is amazing. Being in the Army in Europe sucks.
Understandable.
Yeah.
There's probably restrictions in place that you weren't asking for.
Dan's unadulterated love for the Gallic peoples in France really shone through during his time living in Germany.
Yeah.
What year were you in Germany?
From 10. Well, hold on. Let me see. Do my math here. Math is
public math.
Yeah. It's bad.
Put him on the spot. He said he doesn't do
2010 to 12? Because we closed down the unit after we got back from Afghanistan.
Okay.
Or 9 to 12?
I'd say it because I was at Baumholder in 2016. Now I'm doing math. And it was crazy because although there's almost just nobody there, everything is still painted. Everything was still left alone, and it was cool, but it was also wildly eerie.
Yeah.
As you're walking around, it first still had all the first AD stuff there, then it had the 172nd stuff, and you're like looking around and you're like, dude, nobody lives here. Like nobody.
It's like a zombie apocalypse.
It was wild. Even when I left, and I was one of the last people to leave, they still didn't know what they were going to do with stuff. I mean, we were cracking open containers that hadn't been opened in decades, trying to inventory stuff. They still didn't there's the German military base. I think it's an artillery base just down the road. They were talking about turning it over to them. There was talk about leaving it open as like a range and training facility for, whoever. I think the MP unit was going to stay there. But yeah, when I left, it was already a ghost town. Yeah. And I don't imagine it has gotten better since then. I mean, there's
a couple small
things. Yeah, there's a couple of small things there. But even when I left, some of the old World War II stuff that's still there, because it was a German base during World War II. Some of it still had the eagle and swastika up there in some places.
Wow. I think y'all obviously have crossed paths at some point in your careers, and I think it's telling that y'all's friendship is more like two brothers, is what I would say, what I'm picking up on. Did you, Dan, and I'll pose the same question to you, Roger, especially since y'all have two different tracks in the Army, you being an officer, Roger, and then you being the enlisted guy. Did you ever feel like in your career you struggled with something that Roger kind of brought you back in the fold on, and then like I said, I'll pose that same question to you.
Roger has never been anything more than the millstone around my neck. He is the one constantly dragging me down. When I think back on the last 30-something years that we've known each other, I think of all the success I could have had if I had just moved to a different house in that neighborhood. But there were several points in my career where things weren't necessarily going right, either physically because I've had multiple back surgeries, or in my personal life because at one point it imploded, and I was dealing with a lot of stuff, and having a sounding board that could more readily relate was good, because I wasn't, there's things you don't want to talk about to certain people, whether it's not to burden them or because they wouldn't understand or what have you. But then having somebody who's known you since you were a kid and has known you across multiple deployments, you can talk to them about, I just lost a dear friend of mine. And just being able to talk about what you're experiencing, what you're going through, that's invaluable. Or when I thought that, before my first back surgery and then afterwards, I didn't know, I thought, I've been in for 10 years, and now I might be forced out. Being able to talk to him, because he had a couple of I think that was right after you broke your leg.
Probably.
And
failure to conduct a proper PLF.
Well, I mean, to your point, you bring up the whole idea that you're going to be forced out, but that's the range of emotions you go through when you injure yourself in the Army. You're like,
you just went through that 2 years ago.
Yeah, what is my next move, right? Because even if I have this surgery and the doctor is like, hey, you're going to be just fine, we all know how surgeries go in the Army. We end up on the other side of that where we're like, what if this doesn't work out? What if I don't make it to the end of this, career that I had built? And depending on where you were.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, at the time of my first back surgery, I had been in for almost on the dot a decade, or just under a decade. I was like, what the hell is the last 10 years for? What am I going to do now? Yeah. And being able to talk to somebody about that and have a more logical sounding board. Now, it could have been because, over an older communication method, early cell phones and stuff, I could have been mistaking his cold distance for compassion. It's entirely possible. But being able to, vent that frustration, and not knowing, was and continues to be helpful. Yeah.
There's a line in the New Testament where Jesus says, better a millstone be tied around your neck. Don't worry about the second half. Don't worry about the second half. We're focusing on the first half. I am said millstone for you. You're welcome. Yeah. I mean, a lot of echoing what he said. Because of our moving around so much as kids, we didn't really necessarily have the benefit of having very many childhood friends, because a lot of kids just get to grow up more or less in the same place. They get to choose whether or not they want to keep their friends from middle school or high school. That's an option that a lot of military kids don't necessarily get. So being able to just stay in touch all those years and stay friends was invaluable for me as well. I mean, he was a groomsman in my wedding too, if you believe it.
Yeah. Something he continues to remind me of. As if it's a favor I'm supposed to repay one day.
You're welcome. So that happened here at the Main Post Chapel here at Fort Bragg. North
Once
Carolina.
again. Yes.
So he was always like your standard issued sergeant major for the remainder of your life.
Well, again, I mentioned this earlier, but that was one of my. I remember that phone call I made as a second lieutenant, the one I mentioned earlier. Just like, I don't know what in the world I've gotten myself into, because I'm just in the schoolhouse at this point. I'm not even in an operational unit. Just like, holy smokes! Please talk me off this ledge.
Yeah.
I might have been driving through a desert in Texas when we had that conversation. I don't know.
Yeah. And I mean, I remember that I gave him probably more advice than he ever intended with calling that. But I told him to, when he gets to his unit, he's going to have several NCOs, and trust them all implicitly until they fail you, and then never trust them again.
Flash all the way to the end of my career. I was an instructor for several years up at Fort Lee, now Greg Adams, at the logistics school, but I was teaching the Army Special Operations introduction course up there to logistics, mostly captains. There's a few senior lieutenants in there, but at the end of the course, I would always say, okay, now the block of instruction is now over. Now this is Vogel talking, so this is not part of the POI. And I would always tell them, NCOs, remember, these are all young captains, right? Mostly young, a few prior service folks. I would always tell them, your non-commissioned officers know more about what's going on than you do. So, be humble. If you don't know something, tell them that. Don't try to pass yourself off as knowing something that you don't, because it makes you look foolish. They can smell BS from a mile away, and then you're going to lose respect. Give them the opportunity to kind of show off a little bit. They can teach you. That can kind of boost their ego a little bit, and by showing the boss what's what or whatever. But it will also help you maintain whatever level of respect you may already have, just by being honest with people and transparency. I think that goes a long way in leadership, particularly in the military. And that's very different from some of the older forms of leadership, where it's they call it the mask, right? Like the mask of leadership. You always have to have on this hard exterior. You can never let them see you sweat and all that stuff. I suppose there's a place for that. I won't say there's never a place for that, but I wouldn't recommend using that style of leadership in every single situation.
No, I think you bring up a good point too, because you could overlay that into. I mean, we say civilian and military like it's two different worlds. To us, it kind of is, but it really, the stuff you learn, and like that's a really good point of. I take away from that as like vulnerability, because there's a lot of people who go to a new job or go to corporate or walk into a really big position and they won't want to ask the questions. I don't know, I'm not across the finish line yet, but I could imagine, there's people I've known that have crossed that finish line, right, and gone to work in those places, and they're not, because of some of that mask leadership, you're not vulnerable enough to say like, hey, I need some help in like being able to understand this.
Well, I mean, it's if you don't know how to do this, then why are you in this position? So nobody wants to come off as being unprepared to the job that they're in. But the Army promotes on potential. So you're not going to know everything. Remember that.
Yeah.
You are not the lock and key master of everything that goes on within your domain. There's going to be plenty of stuff you don't know. So ask. Just ask.
Yeah.
And 99 times out of 100, it's going to be an NCO that has the answer.
Yeah. And those NCOs are more often than not, they're the backbone of the Army. They're also the backbone of that unit. They're going to be there before you get there and long after you're gone. When I say you, I mean the officers. We have our cycles, right? You could do a job for a few years and you go off to training, then maybe you come back, maybe you don't. So those NCOs, they're going to know where the bodies are buried. Right, wrong, or indifferent, right? So, just, they're the keepers of that unit. That's why the first sergeant is the keeper of the guidon, right? There's a reason. That symbolism is important and it exists for a reason.
Was there ever a time in either one of your careers, that you felt like you just had no uncertainty on the future and what was going to happen? I know we spoke, earlier offhand, y'all were going through a pretty lengthy adoption process, and I don't know how far you want to go into that, but if you didn't we are so accustomed to success because that's obviously what the Army has taught us, like mission success no matter what. Did you feel like if this didn't go the way I was hoping it would go, what I was going to do next, or did you have any, understanding what the next moves may be?
Yeah, the adoption. So I did a hitch in Korea. So my wife and I had talked about doing an adoption for years. I mean, it's something she'd always wanted to do her whole life, and it was something that I was open to after all the deployments and all the carnage and mayhem I'd seen in my life. I mean, I had a heart for it too, just because of all the real orphans that I'd seen. So as soon as I got home, I did a year unaccompanied in Korea. Speaking of ghost towns up in Area 1, while they were starting to pull everything out of Area 1, that was an interesting experience, maybe for another time. As soon as I got home, we kind of pulled the trigger on that because we knew it was going to take a very long time. So we started, this would have been kind of like the winter, like we'll say early spring of 2018. Mm-hmm. And I remember having the discussion with her saying, if we're going to do this, there's no half measures. We're not going to get into this and then quit. Like there's zero quitting in this. It's going to take years. It's going to be expensive. It's going to be one step forward, two steps back. When we commit, we're doing this. And she said, let's do it. And we prayed real hard on it. And then that following morning, we started the process. And that it's a very daunting experience, particularly because then we had a PCS that started about 2 years later. That just shows, we're 2 years into the process and we're moving, and that's affecting the process because it's still ongoing. So, I mean, again, I remember having our pastor call over to the house and say, what can I do to help? We prayed over the phone. It's just letting go. It's that serenity prayer, right? Like we have no control over certain things in our lives. And certain things we think we have control over and we actually don't. And that's a whole other thing too. But just letting go.
Right.
And leaving it, Dan and I are both believers. He can talk about his faith. I mean, leave it at the cross. Because you're going to drive yourself nuts trying to engineer every situation, particularly when you really have no ability to affect it. And so we moved, and another really almost 2 years go by, and we're COVID happens, and if you think doing an international adoption is tedious and expensive and ridiculous already, we had COVID right smack in the middle of the process for us, and then we moved to another state. So kind of the short version is it was totally worth it. Everything worked out. We got some funny stories to talk about, being in Manila, wearing face masks, so, double face masking with the face shields and being escorted around. And here's another thing. We had to, when we flew in, we had to quarantine in the quarantine zone in Manila in a, particular hotel. If your marriage can survive being in a one-room hotel for 10 days, it's like prison. Like you order DoorDash type food and they bring it to the door and then they have to run down the hall and then you go and get it. It's like a leper colony or what. If your marriage can survive that with Wi-Fi, you're good. So, I don't know if that really answers your question, but it's just...
Yeah, I think it does. I think it hits at the point that you've gone through some trials and tribulations and you knew it wasn't going to be an easy road to get what your family was looking for, but you and your wife came out on the other side of that and y'all brought a beautiful child to the house, and now they get to live probably a pretty awesome life with you alone.
Man, if it's with Uncle Dan nearby.
I'm the fun uncle because I don't have to pay for their dental bills.
He is the fun uncle.
That it sparks a question too, because as I'm sure you guys have, and we've talked about it, as starting a business has been a massive learning curve, right? And
not the whiskey here.
Yeah. So one of the things we have shifted focus on now, and this is going to get back to what you were just talking about, Roger, and this goes for both of you guys too, is what we are going after now is what we define, not everybody else defines, but we define as a human performance self-leadership aspect. So the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual fitness around your life and how you keep them balanced. And at times you're going to be out of balance, but if you are out of balance, how it affects you. So I guess I would ask, starting with you, through the adoption process, how did that component help you get through it during those times where it was one step forward, 14 steps back, and just keeping yourself going?
Yeah, well, I mean, it goes back to our spiritual life.
Yeah.
We had an amazing church family. This would have been started really on this side in Fayetteville. Again, I keep saying we moved but our church family that we had here in Fayetteville, and then on the other side in Virginia was critical for us. I mean, prayer is. I used to be, I've been a Christian most of my life, and it wasn't really until I was a full-fledged adult, which might be arguable, that I really believed in the power of prayer. Because for a long time I believed, like, of course through God all things are possible, and of course I believed all that, but is he really going to listen to my little prayer in the evening? Is he really going to listen to that? And I was kind of down on myself for a very long time about that until I actually saw real miracles. Some of them downrange, people walking away from stuff they shouldn't have walked away from, things here at home, people being, healed or overcoming addictions and things that nobody would have ever thought possible. And then, in our own situation with going through the COVID and all that stuff with the adoption, I don't know how you can walk away from a situation like that and not be a believer. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, we're looking at you, Dan. What about you?
What was the question again?
Just, has there been a point in your career where you've had some sort of hardship that you went through that you just didn't know what the outcome was going to be, and how did you
stay balanced in that domain of physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, or how did it all come together to help you, or how does it help you now? I know Dan doesn't run.
Dan doesn't.
Dan don't run.
Yeah, Dan don't run.
Not anymore. Not anymore. There were several points across my career where things went poorly, professionally, in my professional life, in my personal life, physically, mentally. There were plenty of points. When things fall apart, it all falls apart, right?
When it rains, it pours.
So it's not necessarily about achieving all the balance all at one time.
Yeah.
When things fall apart, you have to build back step by step. So creating small goals to try to put yourself back together so you can put one leg under the stool at a time, right? To get to that balance again. Whether it's recovering from multiple surgeries and let me just walk a quarter mile today. That's it. Worry about the distance, not the time. All right, well, I did that. I'm getting better. I'm getting faster. Let me try jogging a quarter mile today. Give yourself small little pieces. When things blow up in your face and you don't want to be around anybody, you don't want to see anybody, you don't want to talk to anybody, go down to the store, get yourself a tank of gas, go in, get a cup of coffee, and just say thank you to the cashier. Starting that personal interaction again. And then sometimes it gets a little bit harder, right? Because everything that you thought was going great explodes, and the people that you really don't want to talk to are the people you need the most.
Yeah.
So make that call to your dad, to your mom, to tell them that your marriage has exploded and the kids are gone, the money's gone, the car's gone, everything's gone. It sucks. It's awful. But it's important to recreate, to get back to that balance. Yeah. Does that cover it?
I think it does. I think you bring up a good point. At some point, you do have to look at yourself in the mirror and just say, you just got to go and do.
Yeah.
Whatever that is, you just have to go do something. I think we all face that point, right? You can talk to whoever you want to in the world. And in that moment, it probably makes you feel as if you're, a man amongst giants, if you will, and like, hey, I'm feeling good because I just got to talk to my buddy. Everything's great. But internally, everything is not great. And you have to face that music at that point. And just how do you do incremental things that improve your well-being, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a choice. I had to, throw their name out there, but I was just a guest on the No One Fights Alone podcast. And I thought that name was like really good. And that was one thing I told them, because the question they posed to me was, what would you tell somebody that was just getting the shit kicked out of them completely? And just goes back to what you guys all said. And my answer was like, nobody fights alone, right? Make that call. There's going to be somebody there, right? Whether or not you want to make that call or not, somebody's there to listen to you, and somebody's going to be there, even if it's just a sounding board. And then just getting up, and whether it's, you know, across those domains, little wins, right, that are going to help you build that confidence back up. Yeah. And I think I keep going back to vulnerability, because we live in a time now where there's a lot of facade, right? Like, you can see, you know, whether
that is a great word for it.
Whether it's reality TV or everybody's like, look how great this family's doing, right? And I'll say even for myself, right? Like, there was plenty of times people were looking at me going, you have it all put together. And I was like, brother, if you only knew.
Yeah, well, I mean, think about that. It's so full of superficiality, right?
Yeah.
How many filters are on your phone for when you take a picture?
None. All natural.
What kind of phone do you have?
I am just that good looking.
Yeah. I mean, even if you're just trying to make the picture look better, you are putting up a mask. You're putting up a facade. I mean, it is. There's so much just surface dwelling.
Right.
Kind of back to the beginning of this conversation, and many that you and I have had. That's one of the reasons why we created this, because we wanted it to be real. Because if you know what you're looking for around the culture, you'll see that authenticity is where it's at, because of all the filters, because of all the fake reality TV, all of the facades. I think that's why podcasts just in general have become, I mean, the political hacks are all now saying that this last election in the fall was the podcast election, because all of the traditional forms of media have all been basically, you know, outed for being what many of us knew all along, and it's all highly produced crap. Mm-hmm. And that the long form discussions like we're having around this table now is where it's at, and people are craving that.
Yeah. And one thing that you will definitely get with Tracer Burnout is a not highly produced corporate product.
I guarantee it.
So that's a good segue there, because I was going to ask, how did it come about, and then what were some of the things you guys had to work through to get it going? And I know we've had the, you know.
Well, I'll tell you.
This is Dan's villain origin story.
I had an idea for something like this for years. But especially during COVID, during the lockdowns, when you had nothing to do but sit and dwell on your thoughts, right?
The long ago.
And like we talked about earlier, with all the stereotypical veteran stuff, and of course, everybody's just staring at their phones, staring at the TV, wondering what's going on in the world. It just really started grating on me more and more and more and more and more that you only saw this 0.001% of the military or veteran community.
The vet bros.
So I knew kind of that I wanted to do something to amplify the voices and experiences of the other, 99.99% of the military community. And I didn't really know how to go about it or how I was going to do it. But I retired, and about a year and a half into my retirement, I get a late night text from Roger, who's up in Boston doing something with the Red Sox Foundation, and he's bored and lonely, and like most officers, he's drowning himself. He's drowning himself in wine and cheese and his feelings, and so he reaches out via text to his lifelong best friend.
Well, I have my assistant do it for me.
My valet. I get a late night text from Raj, and he's like, "Hey, how do you feel about starting a 501c3 for something for veterans?" And I just text him back immediately, and just like, "Call me." I didn't expect him to call me back then, like right then. I would figured, next morning, something like that. No,
he called to my NCO.
He called me. It was like 11 o'clock at night, 11:30 at night. Called me back immediately, and that starts a series of conversations. I pitched the podcast idea to him. I figured there are a lot of great charities and stuff out there, and these guys know what they're doing, and they're doing a lot of great and amazing things, and it's already a very flooded sphere.
Yeah.
But this goes to show our naivete.
Yeah.
in the podcast world that there are not a lot of veterans out there, necessarily telling their veteran stories, like normal everyday veterans. Not the SF or Navy SEAL guys or anything like that.
The vet bros.
The regular everyday supply clerk, logistics specialist, whatever. Those people aren't out there telling their stories. And the few that I could find that were focusing on veteran stories were very, very, for the most part, very, very cut and dry. It was, here's this piece of paper, fill out the answers to these questions, and then you're going to read them on camera. So, that's terrible.
But it's as good to listen to as you would expect.
Yes. Yeah. So I pitched the idea to Raj about starting a podcast, and over the next several months, we narrowed the focus about like what we were going to be doing, what we were going to focus on, and then how to go about doing this stuff. And that process took 6-8 months. Yeah.
I think it's incredible what you're doing. I mean, because obviously, I'm sure some of your podcast, y'all could sit there and have 10 hours worth of content if you really wanted to, because even like we mentioned, someone who's only served for 4 years, that 4 years can look very different for everybody who's served, right? The guys that came in from 2019 to just a short while and getting out in 2024 that served in the 82nd, several of those individuals have like 3 or 4 no-notice deployments, which that hasn't happened in several years. So I think it's great that y'all are doing something like this, because you also get to uncover some of those truths that they're living, that are the truths that they're not willing to confront, that they need to have sourced through some other means that are better suited to help those issues and whatnot.
We've talked to several people who have said, I haven't thought about this stuff in 20 years.
In real time.
Or I don't think I've ever told this story to anybody before. Right. And it is again, it goes back to the veterans talking to veterans. That's all it is. We use the term interview because it's brevity.
Yeah.
But it's not. I mean, we sit around this table and we have a discussion, we have a cup of coffee, and it's just veterans talking to veterans. That's all it is. And the way that veterans open up to each other is what makes it authentic.
Yeah.
Because this is the same conversation you could have if you were sitting down at a bar next to, an old Vietnam vet.
I just think the VFW missed the mark on their calling. They could have done this a long time ago.
Yeah. The VFW had a podcast, and I listened to it for a while, and then they just stopped. I mean, like the national organization.
I mean,
I used to listen to it, and they just stopped making them.
Yeah.
You start going down.
Well, you know what? I mean, and that brings up a good point to kind of throw out there for people.
Stop.
Oh. Hey, sorry about that. We had a technical difficulty with the camera there, so now we're back here, still with Tracer Burnout. And the next question I wanted to go ahead and pose to them was, hey, they've talked a little bit about why they started Tracer Burnout. Now the question I want to pose to you guys is, what are some of your lessons learned? What did you not know about starting a business and a podcast? And how do you take a lot of the feedback that you get? And I'm asking for us to learn as well.
Asking for a friend.
Yeah, asking for a friend, because it's not as easy as it looks,
So when I pitched this to Raj, I had the idea in my mind of us sitting down with another veteran with a recording device and just talking about their time in service. And I thought that I was telling that to my lifelong best friend, but instead I was telling my lifelong best friend, whose alter ego is the Good Idea Fairy, and he took my idea to the top floor of the building and jumped off.
And said, let's jump.
Yes.
So the next thing you know, we're hiring graphic design, artists. We're hiring patent lawyers. We're hiring a hitman because you never know when you're going to need one of those. And we're hiring all this. And Dan's head is just sitting there spinning. We're filing paperwork to create an LLC and all the things.
Yeah.
My non-commissioned officer friend, who's very hardworking, practical kind of guy, didn't know what he'd gotten himself into.
Yeah, I certainly did. So there was, like I said earlier, there was 6 or 8 months after we first started talking about this to when we actually, I think, even first purchased a piece of equipment. because there was so many other things going on. And I mean, not going to say he was wrong to get us, down that path of this is our idea. This is what we're going to be doing. Let's jump on it now before somebody else takes our
domain.
idea. Yeah. All these things. But there's a lot more to that than I thought. And I mean, we all know how NCOs feel about paperwork. It's not our forte. But Roger is he was still on active duty at the time. He's married, 4 kids, the youngest being just adopted. He's got a lot going on. Mm-hmm. And I was retired with not much going on other than my own devices.
That's why I put it in, yeah.
And so I was digging into all this stuff that I didn't even have any idea how to start. So that was definitely a learning curve.
I want you to picture Dan sitting in front of that wood fireplace in the living room over there, just sitting in a nice chair, reading a book, sipping a glass of scotch with an ascot on, of course.
Yes.
That's what he had going on.
That is pretty much what I did for the first 18 months, minus the ascot, which is a classic accoutrement. But
sorry, not sorry.
But that is pretty much what I was doing until I pitched the idea to Raj, and then it was all uphill from there.
Well, again, back to the adoption thing, right? If we're gonna do this, we're going to do it. We're not gonna tinker around the margins and maybe dip our toe in and mix as many metaphors as we possibly can. Like, we're doing this, so and that's what we did.
Yeah, and mistakes were made along the way. Should we talk about Kevin McAllister from Hollywood, Florida?
Go ahead, man. Our first graphic design artist was him.
Our first venture into graphic design, because we had an idea of what we wanted for the logo.
Yeah.
Which is amazing, obviously. That is not
with the green circle.
That is not what the first version of
rendering
our logo looked like.
We know that word.
We got Roger found this. I don't know.
It was a
firm or whatever.
Yeah, it's a digital marketing
thing, and there was a guy named Kevin McAllister whose phone calls came from Hollywood, Florida, which is a large phone bank. But he was very obviously not the kid from Home Alone.
Does that name sound familiar?
How'd that make y'all feel?
Little disappointed. But he was obviously not even from America.
This hemisphere.
Yeah, this hemisphere. So there was a language barrier there in trying to communicate what our idea was for the logo. And he wasn't even the one designing it. He was then passing it off to another team of people. And the first version that he sent back,
we kept it.
We kept it.
Like, you could have put it together on a PowerPoint.
It is so god awful.
That'll be $300, please. No.
And our money back guarantee was not a money back guarantee.
Yeah.
So that was.
So our full logo, you're looking at part of it, is the green. You guys know it's the green circle. Basically, it looks like you're looking night vision scope and you're looking through. So if you know, you know. So I was trying to explain to these gentlemen what it looks like when you're watching a tracer round go through your field of vision while looking through nods to these gentlemen in Bangalore. Right? So, and then the game of telephone, he's explaining it to his peon, who's handing it off to his peon. So I ended up getting frustrated, and I picked up my handy laptop computer and went into LinkedIn and reached out to an old Ranger Regiment friend and said, do you know anybody with graphic design experience who's actually in the military? And he, another very practical, amazing NCO, said, I know exactly the person for you. And so he ended up referring us to a young female officer, and I believe the Oregon National Guard, could be Washington, but in the Northwest, we'll say. And I made a 5-minute phone call to her and said, this is what I want. And she said, it's very doable. I will have first rendering to you in a week, and then we'll make edits, and then we'll do the last. And then it was the easiest thing in the world. Yeah. So it comes back to that veterans. We should have just reached out to the veteran network in the first place instead of being cheapskates, because then we ended up having to pay for this thing twice. Lesson learned there, but it's that commonality within the veteran network.
Yeah, I mean, not just I mean, dealing with Kevin McAllister was not just the language barrier and the the foreign culture barrier, but then there's also the military culture, right?
Yeah.
So just the same way that, if you're talking to vets about your experience, you can relate because you're a veteran. But trying to pitch an idea to somebody who has no idea what night vision goggles are or how a tracer looks, flashing across them is obviously much more difficult than we thought it was because we weren't talking to a veteran.
Yeah.
And this young lady put something together in a week or so, and we were like, "That's really great. Can you touch this up? Can you touch this up?" And like the second pass was
second time go
was good to go.
Yeah.
So that was not just dealing with Kevin McAllister, but then also, finding out that money back guarantees are not guaranteed.
Sure.
Those are similar experiences, but then the tech as well. I am not the most tech savvy person.
I'm jumping in. When I told our group of old friends, circle of friends, that we were starting this podcast and that Dan was going to be doing the editing, they all did the spit takes with their coffee and started laughing. They said, "You're starting a tech company with Dan?"
Yes.
Yeah. And it was at that moment I realized the mistake.
Yes, I am the
Think of the opening scene to 2001: Space Odyssey.
Yeah, I am the resident Luddite. But yet, I am also the one that sits down at the computer for hours and hours and hours a day and puts the product together. And that division of labor is just kind of what fell naturally.
Sure.
Roger is much more adept at cyber stalking via social media than I ever
Social
could
network
be.
Analysis.
It's a thing,
Right.
Hey.
And me sitting down and grinding out on the product, while tedious and frustrating, is also very rewarding for me in the end run, where I can see, I did this.
Yeah.
I put this all together. And learning along the way, because, if you go back and you look at our first few episodes, not just the visual quality, but the sound quality and everything else has gotten so much better. And that has, while extremely difficult, especially when your episode deadline is in a few days, and you've already told this guy that, hey, it's going to be coming out here, and the friends and family and everything are all super excited, and then the editing software that you're using decides that it needs to update right now and crashes everything and ruins everything that you've been working on. Frustrating, yeah, a little bit.
By the way, those early interviews we did, the interviews are fantastic, but the audio-visual quality is not great. Back to one of your early questions you asked about balance, the mental, physical, spiritual, emotional. If I may, I've enjoyed watching Dan get out of his comfort zone, and that's what it was, Mr. Resident Luddite, get out of his comfort zone and really pour himself into this project. He was retired for a couple of years, as we've established, and I was a little worried about him for a while, and I'm glad that we have this thing that we can do together, that we can emotionally invest ourselves in, because I think it helps maintain a balance, because we're working together. So yes, we get frustrated with each other, but we get to spend a lot of time together. I don't see any downsides to the whole thing, frankly.
That's a great point that you bring up, that y'all are doing this obviously together, and it's fulfilling for both of y'all. Obviously, that's fairly obvious in how y'all talk about it. What about the content of Tracer Burnout and what it's producing? How does that impact y'all? So those interviews specifically, when you hear someone's story, how is it touching on both of y'all? Because everyone shares a different perspective, and I'm sure that you see something differently.
Well, that's one of the great things about having the two of us is because we do have a vast array of different experiences from our careers and from our lives that add to the questions that we can ask and the different approaches that we can take to the conversation. So it gives us a very, very dynamic, or very, very wide dynamic to talk to these veterans. But the feedback that we get, well, before I get into that, it is very, very cathartic for me anyway. Hearing these experiences from the Vietnam vets to Desert Storm vets to I mean, people that have deployed, people that haven't deployed, whatever. It is very cathartic for me to know that I am not, obviously I'm not the first person that's ever had some of these experiences in my life, but it is reaffirming that, hey, he reacted to this pretty similar to the way that I did, but this is kind of how he came out of it.
The comeback story.
Yeah, this is how he kind of like pulled himself out of the tailspin, or, man, that's certainly not a path I would have taken to adjust to this scenario or whatever. So I mean, it is very cathartic for me to hear those experiences, some of which I can relate to, some of which I can't, but it is great to hear how people have overcome their adversities or handled situations great and small. It's amazing. Yeah.
We use the word cathartic to describe this process for us, and I think it's a very apt word. That said, catharsis is often uncomfortable. So some of the survivor guilt stories that we've heard, some of the hardships and the things that some of these folks have gone through that we've ourselves have also, can be very uncomfortable for me at the personal level, and causes me at times to have to go reflect, go pray. Because again, retiring from the military recently, I'm still coming to terms with a lot of things, and you guys, you'll know when you know. I mean, like you'll start to see it. So in a way, this podcast has been very good for me, but it's been uncomfortable at times, in a good way.
Yeah, and I think that's like super important to highlight, and it's good that you guys have a team, because we feel like that in the same way, right? I'm very much like you. I'm very much like, technology's not my thing, right? And
tech is the devil.
Yeah, but when you have like a sounding board, right, of people that are like, hey, you should probably look at it like this, or think about it like this, and just broaden your aperture. And then even we haven't gotten as deep as you guys have yet, but even when you get to hear your friends talk, and you're like, man, I was with you through this process, but man, I didn't know how you were actually feeling. You're right, like it brings it. It's a whole new perspective of it, and which brings me into one of the last few things is the networking. A lot of people, and I'm posing this as a statement and a question. I don't know if you can actually do that, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Do whatever you want.
Yes.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people who would be hesitant to do it. Well, I don't know the right people. I don't know who even I would reach out to. I don't even know who I'd connect with. And this is like a great example of we didn't know each other, and it was crazy that we started linking through friends, which come to find out we have very, very, very close mutual friends that we all know of, and it just started with like simplistic messages of just, hey, how are you guys doing? What are you guys doing? This is awesome. How do we get involved?
We started around the same time.
Yeah, right? And then went from like a simple monthly challenge to like, look at what it's transpired to now. Like
that Jacob's Ladder challenge was bullshit.
The executioner's row was the worst.
Yeah.
I wore that shirt yesterday, as a matter of fact. I earned it.
So what would you tell people that are like wanting to start out and that are saying like, oh, regardless of what it is, whether it's podcasting, whether it's anything that's crowded, I don't know what to do. And disclaimer, we're all still figuring it out.
Yeah. Number one is, for me anyways, if it's something you care about, if it's something you're truly, truly passionate about, if it's something that matters that much to you, do it and persevere. It's not going to be easy. You're not going to get everything right the first time. I mean, it's not an EIB station. It's not all first time goes. You're going to get setbacks all across. You're going to have equipment failures, or you're going to hire the wrong person for this, or you're going to have horrible feedback from somebody that doesn't even know you and doesn't even know what you're doing.
And doesn't care about your success.
You're going to have obstacles along the way. Persevere.
Yeah.
Persevere. If it really does mean that much to you, if it really is that important to you, keep going. Keep going.
Yeah. I mean, probably very similar to what he's saying, but put in another way is indecision is a decision. So this is a lesson I learned as a young officer, where I was actually, it was when I was near that time where should I get out? Should I? And if you in the Army, on the officer side, enlisted's different because you have to sign contracts, but on the officer side, you're in def, so you're basically on the team until you retire or die or something. So I learned that, am I going to get out? Should I or shouldn't I? And then the Army went ahead and signed me up for some stuff and gave me PCS orders. And so I remember sitting at the coffee table with my wife that night, like, I guess we're staying in because we're moving. So indecision is a decision, right? So same thing. If you're thinking about starting a new venture or a new project, now you want to be prudent. You don't want to be half-cocked. But that being said, keep going. Start, and then keep going. Yeah. Take action.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great. That's kind of what we're trying to illuminate here, right? Like, you just have to take a step forward in anything that you're doing, right? Yeah. And to your point, nothing's ever going to be easy. If it was meant to be easy, everyone would do it, right?
Right.
That's
you're not going to get everything right, but be unrelenting like lava, right? Just don't let anything stop you. You're going to get slowed down by, hiccups or whatever across the way, but keep pushing forward.
Yeah. The last thing I'll throw out is, like, you would be surprised at the people you think who are going to criticize. You're going to have critics, but you'd be surprised at how many people are going to come and support it. Yeah. I guess I would say, right, for us anyway.
We got a great message the other day, and we're going to give him a shout out the next time we film a mailbag segment. Yeah. But he's been listening to the show since pretty close to the beginning. Yeah. And his dad was if I remember correctly, is a Vietnam era Navy veteran who only did like one term. Doesn't really talk about his service like openly or anything like that. But it's made this guy, or like the conversations that we've had, have encouraged him to ask his dad about his time in service. Yeah. And his dad will open right up and talk about it because he was asked about it. And getting feedback like that, just like one message like that, is worth it all. Because now he's finding out those stories about his father's service or about his family's service that now he can pass those on. Yeah. And that's he's not sitting down with us and talking about it. Yes. But at least he's telling someone about his time in service and preserving those service stories and those memories and everything.
So his grandkids won't just look at his picture on the wall and say, I don't know, Grandpappy was in the Navy or something, something. Which
what did he do in the Navy? Oh, he was on a boat, Navy boat. Yeah.
So everybody's service matters, and everybody's welcome on the show.
Heck yeah. Well, thank you very much, Roger, Dan. Check out Tracer Burnout. Check it out. It's on all the platforms, right? Apple, Spotify,
YouTube, Rumble, and video version. Then adds photos to those.
The video versions have photos of the service member during their time in uniform. So I mean, some of the Vietnam vets, you'll have some really great ones of their time in country or anything, or things like that, or people traveling around the globe when they were stationed here, there, and everywhere, and the video versions are great. We know that the episodes are long, so not everybody has time to sit down and watch a YouTube or Rumble video for 3.5 hours.
I mean, I guess.
But those are really now there for the families. But the audio version, you can stop and go all you want, and so all of those are everywhere. There are far more podcast platforms than I ever knew existed.
100%.
All right, we got one last thing before you shut your own show off here. At the end of each one of our shows, we have what we call the free fire area, which is like a hot seat kind of thing.
Ooh, right.
We allowed y'all to come to Tracer Burnout Studio as an elaborate ruse in order to set up this ambush.
Yeah, you have walked right into the L shape.
All right, here we go.
Okay. So sometimes they're serious, sometimes they're silly, sometimes they're sublime. So our free fire area question for the two of you: what is your favorite kind of ice cream?
Ooh, mint chocolate chip.
I've been told by Dan that is the incorrect answer.
Chocolate chip cookie dough.
Chocolate chip cookie dough.
That's pretty good. Mint chocolate chip was designed by some French chemist.
He loves the French. Yes.
And deserves to be eradicated from the face of the earth, and every recipe, including it, should be eliminated.
Other than that, it's great.
Mint chocolate chip is like gum and chalk mixed together. It's awful.
Toothpaste.
So what was the right answer?
Not mint chocolate chip. I like ice cream. Butter pecan is acceptable.
Okay.
There's only one kind of ice cream that I ever bought that I did not finish.
Mint chocolate chip.
No.
No.
I will suffer through it because I paid for it.
Is it
Right.
the birthday cake or whatever
I bought, and I think it was Bluebell, the brand. I bought this birthday cake flavored ice cream, and I think I had like two spoonfuls of it, and I could feel the diabetes forming.
His sugar foot was forming.
That thing got moved to the back of my freezer and sat there for like
It's actually
3
still there.
years.
So
No,
I'm
this
going to
was a long
propose
time ago.
something. The next time we do this round table circle thing, whatever we're going to call it, we all have a pint of ice cream.
All
We just
right.
do-
No.
There you go.
Heck yeah.
That 18th Airborne Corps poster was in my dad's office in like 1985 when he was a staff puke in the 18th Airborne Corps staff getting ready for the